The cruelty of our immigration system has remained one of the biggest stories in America for over a year, and for some really shitty reasons.
Kids are taking care of kids, and there's inadequate food, water, and sanitation.
Some 900 children were separated from their families last year.
A federal judge issuing an injunction against the Trump administration policy that would essentially end asylum claims at the southern border.
18-year-old Francisco Galicia was born in Dallas, picked up and detained by Border Patrol, and later ICE, despite having his Texas ID and a birth certificate with him when he was picked up.
That last one wasn't even about immigration. Border Patrol just found a person of color and got them locked up. I'd say it's racist, but apparently calling someone racist is the real racism under Trump's official policy of I'm rubber and you're glue. Of course, that policy also applies because Trump is literally made of rubber. I'm not kidding. This is him without a tan. The cruelty of our immigration system is centered around the idea that since illegally coming into the country is, well, illegal, we should treat immigrants like the worst hardened criminals. But many of the immigrants coming to our country are just seeking asylum, which is legal, and a lot of them are children. As a country, we should not be detaining children, except for the crime of being too cute or murder. The fact is, if we're going to stop the horrors of our immigration system, we need to rethink the laws underlying that same system. In other words, we need to finally decriminalize migration. It's an idea popularized recently by presidential hopeful and Julián Castro lookalike Julián Castro. The idea centers around U.S. Code Section 1325, which is coincidentally also the name of my sexy sci-fi drama. Like, if you want great parts, you gotta write them for yourself. Staying in the country without authorization is only a civil violation. An example of this is when someone comes to the U.S. legally but stays after their visa expires. That's illegal, but not a crime. Sort of like littering or using the middle bathroom stall when all three are open. Are you a monster? Use the left or the right. But according to Section 1325, while being in the country illegally is not a crime, entering the country without permission is a crime. It's that difference that allowed the Trump administration to target parents for prosecution and separate them from their children. Without this law, Stephen Miller would have to go back to separating children from their parents by luring them into the sewer. Decriminalizing migration would repeal Section 1325 and turn most immigration offenses into a civil violation only. While it wouldn't fix everything, it would make it harder for us to have kiddie concentration camps. Plus, fun bonus, no one could call unauthorized immigrants criminals anymore, which would blast your racist aunt out of her chair like the 90s rock video. That's right, Aunt Joanna, it's not a crime anymore. And yes, sadly, she burst into flames on re-entry. This law has been on the books for almost a century, but for most of that time, it wasn't enforced. That is, until after 9/11, when famous pretzel choker George W. Bush ramped up migrant prosecutions, and up-and-coming Netflix producer Barack Obama kept the system in place. Our current system of making life hell for immigrants is younger than Timothée Chalamet and far less hot. No, he is an adult man. The point is, we were fine before our current hellish immigration policies, and we'll be fine after they end. Not only would it save some of the billions of dollars we spend locking immigrants up, it would also be, I'm sorry, what's that word? You really don't hear it anymore. It's humane. But when many people hear the words decriminalizing migration, they think of something else. And by many people, I mean this person.
This is Meghan McCain. I hear what you're saying, but if you decriminalize, aren't you calling for open borders? And how can you enforce any rules if there are no repercussions for doing something illegal?
I'm torn because on one hand, it's wonderful to hear Meghan McCain speak for 10 seconds without making anti-Semitism about her. But on the other, decriminalizing migration is not the same thing as open borders. Take it from the guy who Meghan McCain was yelling her name at. Tell me about your plan to decriminalize migration. What does that mean?
But what it means is that there would still be consequences for somebody that crosses the border. But those consequences would basically be the court proceedings that include the potential for deportation, for instance.
So it'd be more like a parking ticket for escaping a war zone.
More like a civil proceeding that does not involve charging them with a crime. The reason for that is that the Trump administration has weaponized that section of the law that makes crossing the border a misdemeanor to incarcerate migrant parents and then separate them from their little children.
Right.
Section 1325 was passed in 1929, but before about 2004, it wasn't even used.
So it was like a law that was technically on the books, but no one was using it.
That's right.
Sort of like impeaching a president for obstruction of justice. The law is there.
I wish that we could. I wish we would. Well, I mean, the law was there, but it wasn't used in this cruel way. So I say we have to get rid of that part of the law.
What will you say to the inevitable claims that you are for open borders?
We still have 654 miles of fencing, thousands of border personnel, planes, helicopters, boats. So there's no way that anybody can suggest that this is open borders.
Julián Castro flat out open that border.
Open borders.
Open borders.
Open borders.
Open borders. Forget that. It's no borders.
Okay. So what do you think about Trump's plan to move toward a merit-based immigration system?
Look, I grew up with a grandmother that came over here when she was 7 years old from Mexico as an orphan, worked as a maid, a cook, and a babysitter. But just 2 generations after she got to the United States, one of her grandsons, my brother Joaquin, is serving as a member of the United States Congress, and the other one is running for president of the United States.
While you're here, is your twin brother out canvassing for you?
Oh yeah, he's out there right now.
Wait, really? I have a twin too. Why don't you do stuff like that for me?
Why don't you do stuff like that for me?
I
do stuff like that for you. I'm always supporting you. So anyway, immigration.
I know that y'all are not twins.
Oh, really? If we weren't twins, would we be able to do this?
We're so in sync.
Backstreet Boys.
Blew it.